What is going on, you guys? It's David here, back with another episode of the Cerebral Palsy and Fitness Podcast. And today I have Alejandra here on the show. She's a medical assistant, and she also has a disability known as spina bifida. And I'm looking forward to learning about her journey, what motivates her, any obstacles she's faced in her life, and just have a great time and a wonderful conversation. So welcome, Alejandra.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast. I truly appreciate it.
Definitely. To begin our podcast, tell us a little bit about spina bifida. What is that exactly? How does that happen?
So spina bifida is basically it can be diagnosed when the baby is forming in the mother's stomach. And so for me, in my case, my mom didn't find out that I had spina bifida until the day that I was born. It's basically when a baby's spine doesn't form properly and it didn't form the way that it's supposed to. So then that can cause other neurological issues like weakness. Sometimes some people are paralyzed, and there's different types of spina bifida as well.
And what would your, in your case, what would yours be categorized as? Were you paralyzed in some sort of way, or were you just like completely normal when you were growing up?
Well, so for me, I categorized as I have myelomeningocele. It's considered one of the most severe forms of spina bifida. So I can walk, but I walk with assistance of ankle foot orthotics. And then below my knees, I have no feeling and no movement. And so it's been difficult for me growing up because walking long distances can be a little difficult for me, and my ankle foot orthotics or braces all like really make a big difference for me in my everyday life.
You and me both. I used to wear orthotics or AFOs for walking, but I kind of distanced myself from it because I absolutely despise wearing them because they're so uncomfortable. Even though I'm supposed to, but I don't. And I usually I work out as much as possible to kind of avoid wearing it, even though growing up, as a kid, I'm sure you can relate to this, but your parents were always on you about, you got to wear your AFOs, you got to do this with your orthotics, you got to do that with anything, right? Anything that involves our health and our disability, our parents were always on top of us about it. And sometimes, I feel grateful for that because not many parents in our situation tend to do that,
Yeah. For me, it was something that I would always get frustrated about, especially since there's so many cute shoes and the AFOs. I used to have the plastic ones, and those ones are very bulky and thick. And so like I'm a size 3 in shoe, like my actual foot size, but I use like a 8 or 7.5 in woman's size, and that's not even my size. And I have to like use bigger shoes because my braces or my AFOs don't fit in those shoes. And then so for me, that was something really frustrating growing up, and I would always get upset.
Did you in any way when you were growing up, did you get bullied by any kids, or did you face any obstacles with your disability?
Yeah, I did get bullied. I got bullied in middle school, and then also in elementary school and high school. And it was mostly just about like my walking, since I do walk with a limp. And so some people just don't like anyone having differences, and they'll just call me names, and like call me crippled and copy the way that I walk. And it was really hard for me growing up, and I would just like cry to my mom and tell her, and she was always there for me.
Yeah, I was the same way, but one of the things that I used to do every year when I was a kid is my mom would always remind me, take that first day of school, and if your teacher allows it, tell the kids about your disability. Because when you're out in the open from the very beginning, they tend to be a lot more understanding, and they're like, oh, okay, so he's different physically on the outside, but on the inside, he's just like us. So I don't know if you ever, when you got older, you were like, you know what, maybe I should try to speak out a little bit, to start speaking out about my disability, and maybe things might be a little less daunting, and a little less hard on you. as far as
It took
being.
me a long time to get to that point, honestly, because I feel like I was just surrounded by a lot of people that kind of wanted me to be as normal as possible, normal. And so like I didn't really start opening up about my disability until like last year was, well, this at the beginning of this year is when I actually truly started opening up about it. On my personal Instagram, I actually started making a few posts about it. And I had thought about making an Instagram just dedicated to advocating and talking about ableism and all of that. And so then one day I was talking to my sister and she was like, hey, she's like, I was just telling her about about my idea. And she's like, you should do it. Don't be scared. You should do it. And I was like, I don't know. I'm scared. Like, I'm scared to share parts about me that I've never shared with anyone other than like close family and friends. And so she's like, no, you should do it. And it was like midnight. And I'm like, okay. So then I created the page. And then I guess I've just opened up since then. I started my Instagram page less than a year ago.
Oh, that is awesome. Like advocacy, especially in today's society, is so important because without us getting out there and voicing how we feel about not just life in general, but disabilities and how we can teach people is pivotal, because if we don't speak out, people aren't going to know what disability we have, and then people question, what can we do? Then they start judging, then the bullying begins. And if we don't speak out, then those things won't be limited. They won't stop, or they won't calm down. So I truly admire that we both have advocacy in our mindset, and it's always awesome to hear that somebody else is doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's a really good community. I'm like really glad that I did that, and I listened to my sister and did what I was inspiring to do. And it's definitely like changed my life in a lot of ways. I've met a lot of amazing people that are part of the community, and I don't feel alone anymore. That's something that I always felt. I always felt alone, and I felt like no one understood me. But then once I started my Instagram page, I started receiving a lot of messages and people telling me that they're feeling a similar way that I am. And so it's been a lot easier for me to open up and to work on my healing.
So what made you begin as to kind of shift from disability to body positivity? What made you begin kind of showing your natural face, how you look like in front of the camera and in front of like everybody on Instagram? I mean, that must have been scary. I would have been scared, to be like, I'm going to show you how I really look like, with this condition. And I'm pretty sure people at first were like, what is she doing? Like showing all this, like herself. And it's like, some people were like, it's awesome. And some people are probably like, this is just awkward. So how did you feel at first when you first started doing that?
So the first time so like my acne, that's something that I've always struggled with since I was like 12. And so on and off, I've had acne from now and as an adult. And with the masks that we started using last year, when the whole pandemic started, I use it 8 hours out of the day. And then of course, if I go to the store, I have to use a mask. And so I pretty much am using it all the time. And I stopped using like makeup on my face, but my skin started breaking out even worse than it was before.
No.
And so I started seeing a dermatologist a few years ago and just tried different antibiotics. It just wasn't working. And so I just thought that by me sharing my skin and sharing my scars, it would inspire others to embrace their scars and their skin and their imperfections. And honestly, that's honestly what makes a person a person. No one's perfect, and it's okay to show sometimes.
Exactly. It is. It's truly important. Like I've gone through 10 surgeries, and I have scars practically all around my body, like my legs, my feet, my back. I've had two corrective eye surgeries that both failed, unfortunately. But those scars are a part of us. They'll always be a part of us. And the best thing about it is we both made it to this point where we're like, it's a part of us now. It's always be a part of us. And if people judge us, let them judge us. And if people accept us, then let them accept us. But it won't go away. Like Like my stepmom used to say, the disability will always be a part of you, won't go away, but embrace it and use it as a way to influence others, to advocate for those that are struggling. So that's what we're doing right now. So yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing when we can embrace our scars and not feel so self-conscious about it, even though it's okay, it happens, but we try our best to move forward and to be happy and be positive.
Yeah, it honestly is really hard to be positive. Like I have a lot of days where I just don't want to, sometimes I just don't want to leave my house, especially like with how my acne has been, and um, my scars on my back have also been a really big insecurity of mine. And showing it on social media was even more scarier, especially since I live in a small town. So pretty much everyone knows everyone. And posting about my skin and about my scars on my back, all of that was scary for me because no one had ever seen it. That was a hidden part of me that I hid with clothing and just hid it the best I could. And so that was a really, really big step.
So who influences you the most, like out of your family? I know that your significant other is a huge part of your life that's kind of gotten you
Mm-hmm.
ahead, and I've seen pictures, and let me just say, it's a beautiful thing that you have a partner and somebody who's willing to be there for you and accepts you for who you are. That's incredible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel really blessed and lucky that I met him. It's not easy to find someone or to meet someone that will accept you for who you are and everything about you. And so I'm really grateful to have his support all the time. And for me, who I'd say has inspired me the most are my parents. Both of them are immigrants from Mexico. And my dad arrived here when he was 12 to Washington State, and my mom when she was in her early 20s. So just being like working for them and opening up about myself has really been something that I push myself to do, and they're very supportive about it as well. And they both know that I have my Instagram page, and when I told them about it, they were very encouraging. And something that I really like that they did is that although like I have a disability, I have four other siblings, and they never ever made me like hide it, or they never made me feel different than they did. They raised me the same way that they were raised, so I never felt like poor me, poor me.
Yeah, my stepmom used to be one of those moms that was like, she'd give me one look every time I try to mope or like complain about something. She'd be like, my putty box is broken, I don't want to listen to your excuses. So she'd give me that tough love, every single
Yeah.
day, and then it kind of rubbed off on me. So I I'm a youth advocate, so I deal with a lot of middle school students that are at risk.
Hmm.
So they might have a broken home, or they might be missing a parent, or both the parents are just struggling economically, and they have to be working all the time, and they're not really home. So
Hmm.
the kids tend to rely on me to be kind of like a big brother, and it's weird because the first day that I started the job, kids were asking me questions like, "What do I got? Like, why do you walk like that?" No, but I work with middle school, so middle school kids are brutally honest.
Oh yeah.
They'll be like, "What the f is wrong with you?" Like the first day, I was asked just like that, and the kid, and I'm like, I wasn't taken aback. I was like, "Oh, they're middle school
Yeah.
kids," so I'm like, to our level,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I was born in Antarctica and I walk like a penguin, so yeah, that's why I kind of walk like that. So I joke about it, like I'm completely cool with my
Hmm.
disability now. I don't let it get to me. Like
Yeah.
with kids I'm cool with talking about my disability and being to a level and just having fun with it. With adults, it's a different story, because sometimes adults can be really like, they can like go like way out when it comes to what they want to say, like, and when they say it, it's like, be mindful, I
Yeah.
get you're an adult, you should know better. I'll answer questions, but sometimes it's like they'll blatantly say something, like that you don't really like, and you try to shrug it off, but you can't. It gets in the back of your
Hmm.
mind. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, I do. So I actually, since I work with patients, sometimes I could tell that they're just looking at me because they know that I'm walking a little bit different. And so they kind of just look at me, but they don't say anything. But sometimes some will actually ask me what's wrong. They'll be like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And then I'll be like, "Yeah, I am." They're like, "Can I ask what happened to you?" And then they're like, "Do you have, what is it called?" They asked me if I had a certain like disease. I forgot.
Uh,
Polio.
polio. Okay.
Yeah, they asked me if I had polio because I guess one of their family members walked similar to me, so they think that I have polio, and that's been like one of the common things that they've asked me. And so I have to just tell them, and I try not telling them too many details. I just tell them I have spina bifida, and then I just tell them what spina bifida is, and then I kind of just leave it at that. But sometimes like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry, like feeling bad for me, and that's what I don't like. I don't like when people feel bad for me.
Yeah, I had a friend with spina bifida growing up, but his was a lot worse than yours. He was wheelchair bound, so he couldn't walk at all. But
Mhm.
he was my very first friend that I had when I moved here, when I moved to Florida, and it was so funny. We learned a lot about each other, and we remained close until he ended up moving to Texas, and since then we kind of lost contact. But um, it was good to know that I had friends, you know, around, that
Mhm.
I wasn't alone, you know, as far as the disability community. So now I feel, now as I'm older, as an adult, you know, now you can see that you have everybody around you that supports you will be there. Everybody that doesn't is just they go their different ways. So
Mhm.
I'm glad to be able to share your story today. And I wanted to know, what, I guess, I don't know if you target, if you're, as far as like your disability, is your demographic like everyone, or are you targeting a specific audience as far as your advocacy?
I feel like anyone with any type of disability and anyone that has experienced ableism, I'm just trying to really put my word out there and advocate and give more knowledge to those who are able-bodied. I do have some able-bodied followers on Instagram, so they're also learning a lot, and that way they can spread the word and let the people that they know about it as well. And then also about the acne community, I also am really targeting that community. I'm not as vocal about my acne. That's something that I'm still very insecure about. Currently on my Accutane journey, barely almost 1 month in. So it's been kind of hard, but I do follow other accounts on there as well.
Awesome, awesome. What would you say to those that are currently struggling with, I guess, self-esteem, body image, and their disability in general, to kind of motivate them to pursue their goals and their dreams?
So I would tell them that it's okay to feel that way sometimes. It's okay to cry. And it's very important to talk about it, to speak about what you're feeling, because the more you keep it inside, the harder it can become. And so doing that and opening up about it is really, really vital. And if you need to seek therapy, it's okay. I know therapy is not for everyone, and especially like in the Hispanic community, it is very looked down upon, and it's looked as if you were crazy. And I just want everyone to know that they're not crazy. And the first step in doing that is realizing that it's okay to need help.
Yeah, it really is. Like, without those resources that we have available, I think a lot of us would be really just struggling to find ourselves and
Mhm.
who we are. And thankfully, it's out there. It's just a matter of figuring out a way to reach that reach out to that resource. You know, some of us might not have it as easy as others to be able
Yeah.
to get access to it, you know, because, as you know, ourselves being minorities, you know, we're Hispanic, and a lot of resources we have out there available are are, are not really accessible,
Mhm. That's so true.
and it's not easy.
Yeah, for me it wasn't easy. I did about 6 months of therapy. So almost like the last half of 2020, and then like a few months of 2021, I started doing therapy, and I kept it a secret. I didn't want anyone to know. And my mom ended up finding out, my parents ended up finding out. And for me, it was something really scary because I know the way that they feel about it. And so I kind of just have to tell myself, like, I don't care what they think. I'm doing this for myself and I come first. And if this is what I need to do in order to feel better and to work towards being better for myself and feeling better about myself, then I need to do this. And it's okay.
Exactly. It's okay to work on yourself, and that's truly an important thing that we should keep in the back of our minds. And as adults, we can make that decision. We have to make decisions sometimes that people might not agree with, not your friends or your
Mm-hmm.
family, but it makes sense to you though, as long as it
Yeah.
makes sense to you and it's a good thing that's helping you, go
Mm-hmm.
for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are your future goals? I want to know what do you want to accomplish as an advocate and as a human being, because so far we've had such an awesome conversation. I've had a
Yeah.
blast having you on. So what are some
Oh,
goals that
thank
you want
you.
to accomplish?
So I would like to continue my social media platform and continue getting to know other people on there. I would also like to start a podcast just like you. It would be really interesting to do that and have other people featured on the podcast and just talk about different topics. And then maybe being like a public speaker and just speaking about my experiences in life to others around me. I think I just need to get more comfortable about speaking in front of other people. I did take a public speaking class in college, but I'm still like I'm still kind of insecure, so it's really hard for me. Like doing this is kind of a big step for me. Like seeing myself in the camera can be a little hard, especially like while speaking on through video. So
Well,
doing that sometime in the future, and then continuing my I'm thinking of doing a bachelor's in healthcare administration. So that's something else that I would like to accomplish within the next few years or so.
that's fantastic. Well, let me tell you a little story about when I first started speaking. I started speaking 4 years ago after I graduated from college. And my very first appearance happened to be at my university in front of
Oh,
maybe
okay.
20, 30 students. And let me tell
Mm-hmm.
you, I was like, I'm gonna give this a shot. Let's see how it goes. And it was a complete disaster. I mean, as a disaster, I was a nervous wreck. I was sweating. I just literally like spoke like Speedy Gonzalez. I was just trying to get it in and get out. And then the next day I'm like, you know what? I don't think I can do this. And then I thought to myself, but this is something I've always wanted to do. So let me just continue. And then I had a couple more appearances, and that's when I started getting comfortable on the camera, in front of the camera, in front of a
Mm-hmm.
crowd. And then unfortunately COVID hit, which kind of
Oh,
shifted everything from in person to virtual.
yeah.
And then that's when I said, I'm stuck at home for the next 6 months. So then I began to contemplate, what am I going to do now for 6 months while I work from home? So I decided to begin the podcast back in 2019. I started talking about my story, sharing my journey. And I thought to myself, why not use the platform to give other people a chance to share their story and a chance to speak out and advocate
Yeah.
for themselves and teach others about different disabilities out there. And so that's when I started having guests on the show. And since then, people have loved it. I got feedback about, you should have this person on, or you should have more of this. I've had interracial couples on the show. I've had people that have that are from the LGBTQ community. I've had people like yourself with spina bifida.
Mm-hmm.
I've had best-selling authors, professional wrestlers,
Oh, wow.
Olympic athletes. I've had people from
Mm-hmm.
all walks of life with different disabilities on the show, and let me say, it's been a pleasure having them on and learning about their story and having them be able to share in front of a huge audience and changing. The point is to change the perception of how they feel about disabilities to where they're like, this is completely normal. This isn't different. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
like something that we should be afraid of. We should embrace it. It's normal. So that's my goal with this podcast, is to hopefully bring everyone together and to know that whether you have a disability or not, or you face strugglers or not, at the end of the day, we're all one, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of started the podcast, and I'm glad that you're starting your own. And if you have any questions, I'm here for you. And you're speaking to the right guy, because I have a lot of connections to different podcasts and different people that are doing, radio interviews. So I'll be glad to help you get started on that journey of public
Mhm.
speaking.
Oh yeah, that's something that I'm like really nervous about, especially in front of a crowd. I feel like it's different like with the screen, because you could easily edit the video, or cut some things out. And then when you're in front of people, it's kind of like I'm a little bit afraid of making a mistake. But at the same time, that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And I'm sure from your first experience, you grew from that, and then you expanded onto this podcast. I would also like to make a YouTube channel, but that's kind of another thing that I'm a little bit afraid about. But I think I will do it.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, the best thing you could do is just go for it. And if like I said, if you fall flat on your face, it's okay. Just get back up and keep trying. That's all you can do.
Mhm.
I mean, it took me so long to get to this point. Like, I fell so many times, and then there are times where I just want. I literally had a YouTube channel. The first go around back in 2018, it wasn't going anywhere, and it was like nobody's really watching, nobody's really subscribing, and I'm just like, wait a minute. And then I shut it down, and then I spent weeks rebranding and figuring out what am I gonna do with it to make it successful. So I decided to
Mhm.
make it about cerebral palsy and fitness, but then I realized there's more to cerebral palsy and fitness. We're talking about disabilities as a whole, and so I've kind of
Mhm.
shifted from not just fitness and cerebral palsy, but everybody gets to be a part of it. And now I have 200 over 200 subscribers now on the channel in 2 years,
That's good.
and like 6,000 views. So
It's honestly, it's about spreading your word out there, and just I feel like being yourself is a really big part of the platform and other people getting to know you.
it really is, and it's not easy, but we get it done. We get it down pat, and
Mhm.
we have to remain positive and optimistic in everything that we do. And
Mhm.
that's something I admire you for, is the fact that you always seem so positive despite days where you're like, I don't feel like myself, but I'm going to do my very best, and that's what
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, that's what I try to think about, especially the days where it's a little harder. Like some days are just harder than others, and I just try to think positive. And a lot of what I do is I go on Instagram and I just like start scrolling through my feed, because I have my personal Instagram, then I have my public Instagram. My personal Instagram is just more people that I know personally and like in real life, and then my public ones more of people that I've met online and people that can actually relate to me. And they like reading a lot of other people's posts makes me feel less alone. So I definitely really enjoy going on Instagram. It's a really big part of my life.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to following your journey, seeing where you go down the line in the next few years, and I'm hoping to see you be able to publicly speak about your disability, and hopefully become comfortable enough to where you're like, this is a piece of cake. I can go anywhere and not worry about it, not worry
Yeah.
about my self-confidence and how I look, and just go out there and have fun.
Mhm.
And that's the key about public speaking, is for you to have fun. Everybody in that room is there for a reason, and that's because they're intrigued to learn about you. You know,
Yeah.
that's the first thing I had to learn when after my first appearances. Everybody in that room isn't there to make fun of you. They're there
Mhm.
because they support you and they want to learn about you, and they like learning about disabilities. So I always, in the back of my mind, every time I do an appearance, I always keep that in the back of my head.
Mhm. Very important to do that.
So thank you for being on. And I was wondering, where can people find you, like to follow you and to follow your journey?
So I on Instagram I am under fearlessly underscore Alejandra. And then on TikTok, I'm also under, I think, I can't remember my TikTok name. I've changed it so many times and it doesn't like allow me to change it. But Instagram is my main platform right now that I speak about it on. I have Twitter as well, but that's more like I don't really speak about that on there and I don't use it as often. So Instagram is my main platform that I use right now. And hopefully in the near future, YouTube as well, and possibly a podcast.
Yeah, and I'll be listening and watching, so I'm excited.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being on. It's been a pleasure. And if you guys would like to find this episode, you're gonna find it on Red Circle, iTunes, Spotify, every single major platform out there. And as I always say, and I'm gonna go ahead and I've been modifying my saying for the last like couple episodes. I usually say if I can do it, so can you. But if Alejandra and I can do it, if we can overcome our obstacles and be successful, so can you. All right,
Yes.
guys, see you to this next episode. And thank you again, Alejandra, for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and be safe, everyone.